is. Yes.
We're ready to go.
Okay, we are going to call to order the regular meeting, September 14th, 2022 meeting of the San Ramon Parks and Community Services Commission. Madam Clerk, can we please start the Pledge of Allegiance? Okay. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And we'll now go to roll call, please.
Commissioner Oslin,
Present.
Commissioner Breed, absent, Commissioner Mitra,
Present.
Commissioner Lopez Lucy,
Present.
Commissioner Ellicott Pesic,
Present.
Vice Chair Dorlick,
Present.
Chair Keniston Lee.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to go to item 4, special items and announcements. 4.1, we're going to be swearing in our student commissioner.
So it is my honor to administer the oath of office for our newly appointed Parks and Community Services Student Commissioner. It is the first in-person swearing in 2 years, I think.
Wow.
So it's exciting.
Yay.
So go ahead, let's go ahead, raise your right hand and repeat after me. So I, please state your name.
I, Arthur Douglas,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies,
against all enemies,
foreign and domestic,
foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
that I will well and faithfully
that I will well and faithfully
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
upon which I'm about to enter.
on which I am about.
Congratulations.
Yay. You're official now. Well, I think I join my fellow commissioners in welcoming you. The student commissioner position has always been an important role, giving a voice to students on our commission. So welcome. Is there anybody else who would like to say anything?
Welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Okay. All right, ready to go. Okay, we're going to go to item 4.2, and we're going to recognize our temporary employee of the month for August 2022, Kathleen Bregman.
Good evening, commissioners. I'm very excited to be standing before you to honor this very special young lady that's standing beside me. I would like to congratulate Kathleen Bregman, or Katie, for being selected as the City of San Ramon Temporary Employee of the Month for August. Kathleen has worked for the City of San Ramon since May of 2021 and currently serves as a senior lifeguard for the Aquatics Division. Kathleen begins every shift with great energy, lifting up the other staff on her shift and brightening the days of those who visit our pools. She is always seeking new opportunities to learn, grow, and take on more responsibility. She has shown great leadership amongst the aquatic staff, leading by example and providing assistance when needed. Recently, Kathleen assisted with the aquatics new lifeguard orientation hosted on August 24th, volunteering to help lead the in-water training portion. She took ownership of the training material, came prepared, and was able to efficiently train the 8 newly hired lifeguards on critical in-water skills. Throughout the training, Kathleen maintained a positive learning environment, which made the new lifeguards feel welcomed and comfortable in their new position. Kathleen demonstrated the same type of attitude throughout summer while helping lead the city's most popular tennis, and aquatics camp. She was able to gain experience working with a wide age range and delivering swim instruction in a way that was fun and both engaging for the campers. Kathleen graduated from San Ramon Valley High School in 2022 and will be starting her college journey this fall, attending University of Washington, where she will study marine biology. Kathleen is a true gem to have on our staff, and we look forward to seeing her continue to grow and learn new aspects of the aquatics operation when she returns next summer. The Parks and Community Services Department would like to take this opportunity to thank Katie for her dedicated contributions to the department and the city of San Ramon. Thank you.
One of the things that really resonated for me with your write-up was that not only do you do your job of giving up, but people that other people do their job and that's anybody else have something to say?
Yes.
And when they're done speaking, you want to hear from you, you'd like to say something.
Of course.
Go Husky.
Go Huskies. I just want to say thank you guys so much. I greatly enjoy my time here at the City of San Ramon. I've made so many friends and I wouldn't change anything for the world. So once again, thank you guys so much for this honor and have a great night.
All right. I think we're good. Anybody else? Are we good? Okay, great.
Thank you very much.
All right. We are going to go to item 5, public comment. At this time, members of the public are encouraged to address the Parks and Community Services Commission on any item not already on the tonight's agenda. Comments should not exceed 3 minutes. So I know we do have one member of the public who'd like to speak to us, Taiwan Secountry. So come on up.
Thank you, commissioners. I think this is the right committee to speak to you about this. As you know, I just met up with you at the Doherty Valley Community Center to discuss about the materials. And then when I exited, I realized that I had mistakenly parked in the police parking space. And it's because I forgot after a long time, haven't been there, that there is a spot for the police. And also after I looked at it, the paint that says police has faded so much, it's almost invisible now. So I understand that everything is budgeted. I don't know if you have the money. The officer who was like, there wasn't a lot of vehicles, but he was nice enough. He didn't give me a ticket or anything, but I feel like I am obligated to sort of share that information with you. And if you don't have the money, I'd be happy to write a check for you to paint that space. Because, when there is a lot of cars, especially maybe, on a Farmer's Day Sunday, that space really should be reserved for the police. But at this time, like I made a, unintentional mistake. So I really would like you guys to please paint that space back visibly if possible. And if you don't have the money, please let me know. I would be happy to pay for it. Thank you.
So for those who don't know, when public comment is given at this time, we do not comment on it. We're legally required not to comment on it. But the good news is we have lots of staff to take notes on things that are said. So we're good. Okay, so we're going to go to item 6.1, approval of minutes for the regular meeting, August 10th, 2022. As I said before, when I run meetings, I'm assuming everybody has read them. So I will indeed entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. So let's move forward with a vote. Okay, somebody got the beep this time. Seems every meeting somebody gets that beep feature. It's the seat. Okay. All right. We do have one with Commissioner Breed absent. We have a passage 6-0. Thank you very much. All right, consent calendar. Do we have any consent items, Madam Clerk? We do not.
I did have a couple of quick announcements for the
Oh, yes.
commission. So if now would be a good time.
Yes, that'd be great. Thank you.
Absolutely. I wanted to make sure that everyone knew that our new division manager, Brad Morris, is here and he's going to be joining us at commission meetings from now on. So we're happy to have him. Also, a couple of quick things. We are planning to have a policy committee meeting on September 28th. I think that's Steve, Carol, and Julia who would be at that. And so please make a note of that. That would be for the sports field sponsorship, further discussion.
Can you say the date again?
The September 28th. Excuse me? Yeah, that's a Wednesday. I'll have Christy can reach back out with the exact time, but I just wanted to make sure everyone was aware. We're also going to be doing some interviews for the Arts Advisory Committee. We've got a few applicants, so Christy will also be reaching out to find volunteers to do that later this month. Exciting, the judging of the Scarecrow Scavenger Hunt is planned right now for Friday, October 21st. So, excuse me, we will need judges for that. So if you're interested in judging that, if you can also let Christy know that, so that we can plan if we need to agendize it, given the number of people who might want to assist. And also, as you know, we had to reschedule the joint meeting with the city council. Right now, we're looking at October 18th or 19th as dates. So if any of you have a conflict with either of those dates, if you can let me know. I don't have it confirmed yet, but those are two of the dates we're looking at. And so if someone has a significant conflict, we'll move to a different date. Then finally, a few dates to note for your calendars. The September 22nd is the Live Well Resource Fair at the Senior Center. Really fun event, great opportunity to find out about all those services. The Library Foundation Mega Book Sale is September 22nd to the 24th. That preview is on Thursday night. You have to be a member, but then you can get the books 50% off. Can't miss October 1st, the Historic Foundation Oktoberfest. I'm sure that Commissioner Lopez Lucy will be bringing that up. On that same night, there's also a jazz concert at the library put on by the Library Foundation. And that is also the weekend of Durga Puja. So I believe Commissioner Meacher will likely mention that.
Yep.
And, you know, I know that parades are a topic that everyone has been interested in. I think as you all may or may not know, you know, the Glow Parade we thought up is not on the schedule for this year because it wasn't in the budget. So we couldn't get that this year. But I have to mention that the Cal High Homecoming Parade, because it is a parade, is happening on October 7th. And we'll be revisiting that Glow Parade probably in next year's budget to see if we can get that put in. And then finally, before our next meeting, the Run for Education, October 8th and 9th, they're back live and are really looking for lots of people to come out and enjoy that. So please get that on your calendar as well. Question?
Is it possible we can add the reference to the culture in the community, which is October
Oh,
22nd?
yes.
Is city sponsored?
Yes, absolutely. It came after the next meeting, so that's why I didn't have it in there. But absolutely, culture in the community, don't miss.
But Commissioner Dorlick was asking why the run was 2 days. They now have a friendship run for our friends with special needs. And
Oh, okay.
so
Okay.
it's a wonderful enhancement to the program. So,
There's actually a lot more going on.
A
out there,
lot.
so I'll send you
Yeah.
there's
Okay.
a whole exhibit. They used to call it a health and wellness kind of fair and exhibit, and now they've got a lot more going on. So
Yeah.
definitely check out the
That's great.
first day.
Yeah,
as
there's
well.
also, in addition to the friendship run, there's a run for the little ones, so under
Right.
6.
Yeah.
So it's like a
Under
little kid
6.
run. the
I love
friendship
it.
Run, and then the
Yeah,
5K and
that's
the
great.
10K.
Yeah, I'm sure some of those little ones can run faster than I can. Okay, so we're going to go to commission business now. Item 8.1, general plan update. The draft parks and recreation policies and the parks and recreation plan. We're going to have a staff report by Cindy Yee. Here's how I'm going to structure this. I just want to kind of give you guys advance notice. After Cindy gives her presentation, we are going to open it up for very overarching general questions from the commission. Then we will go to public comment, and then we will go to a policy item by policy item discussion, where we will then open it up to comments and then more specific questions. So we're going to do this in the interest of time and in the interest of efficiency, if that's acceptable to the commissioners. Okay. All right. It's all yours, Cindy.
Great. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity to present in front of you this evening. I know last time we met to discuss the general plan, we were on the Zoom format, so it's great to see you in person. Just about a year ago, the planning staff was in front of this commission, introducing our general plan update. We've been working on this document for the last year. The general plan really is the city's long-term vision and sets goals and policies for a 20-year outlook for the city. So our planning period is going to be through 2040 for this document. And the goal is to obtain feedback and get some additional comments and information for the public review period of this document. The Parks and Recreation element is one element or one chapter of the general plan. It's one of 8 mandatory elements that are in our general plan. And so the document is really sets the goals and policies for Parks and Recreation element and for the development of parkland. What you have in front of you this evening are the parks classifications that are in the element itself, as well as attachment of the policies related to recreation and parks. Once we get feedback and additional comments on the policies, we can then begin updating the narratives that go with those policies and provide the background and information to get us to that next step of actually having a draft of that element. So I wanted to talk first about parks classifications. There are 6 classifications that are in the element. They're in your staff report, and they're shown in a track change format. So you can see that of the 6 elements that are, or the 6 classifications that are in the element, not a whole lot needs to be changed in terms of those definitions. They've been more or less the same definitions since the city incorporated. So you should be pretty familiar in terms of neighborhood parks, community parks, and those types of definitions for the different parks that exist in the city. We have taken this opportunity to refine and update 2 of those classifications, the specialized recreation areas and then the public spaces. And so those are identified in track change format is what staff is recommending as updates to those 2 classifications. We've been working in partnership with the Parks Department staff as well as the city's consultant team that's working on updates, making sure that any state requirements have been incorporated into these policies that may need to be addressed. And then the second document, attachment A, is the policies that are in the general plan Parks and Recreation element. There is 1 guiding policy and 19 implementing policies. So the implementing policies will implement the guiding policy. The change to the guiding policy is just instead of just defining public parks, we're specifically calling out publicly accessible parks to recognize that privately operated but publicly accessible parks would fit into the definition now of parkland in the city, and then also recognizing trails as being an integral part of parks and recreation. So some changes to that particular policy, as you can see in the attachment, as well as some additional edits that we've made to the policies itself that implement that guiding policy. So with that, I can take questions that you have. I also have the policies itself in an attachment if you'd like for me to bring those up for us to discuss specific or wording on specific policies, but I'm open to any questions that you have, and
Yeah.
I'm sure there's some public comment as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So actually, let's break up the overarching question, clarifying question part to number 1, park classifications. Did anybody have any questions relative specifically to the suggested changes in the 2 or no changes to the park classifications? Please make sure you hit your little raise hand thing and I will call on you, Commissioner Osland.
So I just want to clarify, Chair Keniston Lee, are we asking questions about these at this
Yeah.
point and not
So-
making our comments?
Right now, I'd rather we ask questions
Okay.
and actually I'd rather that we ask clarifying questions for the park classifications and then overview questions for the policies. And then we'll get into some specific item by item questions once we open it up after public comment to commissioner comments. So yes, go ahead and ask questions.
Okay, so I guess Cindy, one of my questions is under the specialized recreation area. It looks like we struck out. We left tennis court facilities, but there's no mention of the other kinds of facilities. And so I was just wondering why it's only says tennis.
As we were updating the document, it was, we wanted to take some of the specificity out and make it more general. So rather than calling out one particular type of park or one particular type of sports facility, we've narrowed those down to just being more general, such as dog park, rather than specifically calling out the Del Mar dog park, for example. This was just done as an example of the different types of sports facilities. And so the list can include more or less of those if you'd like, or if you think there's something that we need to specifically highlight.
I actually had the same question that Commissioner Oslin had and sort of felt like a generic sports facilities reference, a little bit more of an umbrella. I don't know how anybody else feels. Does anybody else want to weigh in on that one?
Are we commenting or just, I mean,
Okay.
It's just used as an example,
Yeah.
such as
Okay,
means it's an
okay.
example, and there's other parks that
Okay.
are similar to that, but.
So
not
thank you,
named.
Commissioner Oslin. You're absolutely right. So we've asked the question and I guess we'll give our comments later. Okay, let's go to Ms. Hyman.
Well,
I was going to throw in a little bit extra because I think it was the city staff or park staff who put that in there. And part of the reason for that tennis court reference was because when we try and count the parks up, it gets a little tangled up every single time, because do you count the Cal High tennis courts as a park or not a park? And so in the future, if we end up with more tennis or pickleball courts that are standalones, is that a park or is it not a park? And so therefore, we thought it was more of a specialized recreation area. So just to give you context on how that landed there, that was the thought process, but sports could work as well.
Okay. Any other questions regarding the park classifications? I had one on public spaces, Cindy. It seems like that really is directed toward privately owned public spaces. Would that be correct?
Right. So rather than creating a separate new classification of public spaces, which we currently already have in the document, and then
Mhm.
adding a separate one that would address privately owned but publicly accessible parks, which has kind of been a topic of discussion for some time for this commission. What we decided to do was, rather than make it confusing, because public spaces in general could be private or public
Mhm.
accessible, that we amended the public spaces classification to now read both private and public, publicly owned or privately owned recreation areas or facilities. And we think that that covers the gamut of the different types of publicly accessible types of spaces.
Mhm. Okay, and then I'm going to reserve my comment. Commissioner Dorlick. Vice Chair Dorlick.
Well, I think that was important because it takes into account the walking district, which is both on public and private land. So the public spaces includes both of those, and that's, I believe,
Okay.
what the reference was going to.
Okay. All right, so last call for questions on the park classifications. Okay, so we're going to go to, are there any general, is this even accomplishable, general overriding questions? Because again, what we're going to do is after public comment, we'll go through each implementing policy and we will ask for questions and comments at that time. Okay, so anybody have any burning general questions about policy, guiding policies? No. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and go to public comment, open up public comment. I know that we have one card. Do we have anybody remotely who has questions or comments, public comment?
Nobody has their hand raised at this time.
Okay, so we're going to ask Taiwan Country to come on up.
Hi, Commissioners. Again, first of all, I want to thank Ms. E. I was reading her report in the folder. It was very detailed, very well, nice written. The only information I missed that she was able to provide in her oral presentation was that this is for planning up to 2040. So then that sort of affect my comments to different parts, I guess. My comment was about the climate action plan that she put in her written report. As a public, I often see that we have broken sprinklers at the park, and also at night, the water is everywhere. Sometimes it's not directed all at the lawn. And so then the concrete is spilled with a lot of water. So my suggestion, if this is about maintaining the existing park, is it possible that we can gradually phase out to perhaps synthetic lawns? That way you can just power wash. This is under the climate action plan that she had in her written report. It should be in the very beginning of her written report, if you're wondering what I'm talking about. So I would be suggesting that we phase out the biological grass and then put in synthetic. That way we can save water and we don't have to deal with mowing machines. And then we can maybe just power wash, because I personally have synthetic material in the lawn. It is very, very easy to take care of. You don't have to maintain it every day, just sometimes water it down and stuff like that.
I hate to cut you off, but we actually are talking about guiding and implementing policies within the general plan.
For parks.
For parks, correct.
Okay.
So go ahead and wrap up.
Okay, and so then if this is for through 2040, I'm thinking also that this could be for the new parks that are on the that are in the pipeline for the new projects coming up. Then in that case, I don't know if those parks are our cost to build or the developers. Maybe we can sort of ask the developer to make sure that they go towards a more environmental friendly material for park lawn material instead of grass. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Do we have any other public comment that anybody else has raised their hand? Okay, we're going to close public comment. We're going to now go to commissioner comments and clarifying questions with regard to the guiding and implementing policies. I think the best way for us to do this is go one by one. There will be, I think, some policies where probably nobody has anything to ask or to say. But if you do, please raise your hand and we will go through them systematically, okay? So I believe we start with 6.5-G-1. Any questions or comments from our commissioners? Let me know if I don't go in the proper order. I think we're good. Okay, let's go 6.5-I-1. All right. 6.5-I-2. Okay. 6.5-I-3. Commissioner Dorlick?
Well, we have made some changes based upon the type of park and the type of development that it's within. So, perhaps adding something depending upon the development and the need of the community there. Because I believe the park with Summerhill was below 2 acres.
I thought it was just about 2 acres.
About 2 acres.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I believe
Yeah, we're
that's a-
going to need you for this one, Cindy.
That's a 2-acre park.
Yeah, 2 acres. yeah.
Did we hit 2
Mhm.
acres on that?
We
We did, and that just, I can help a little bit, that particular classification is talking about neighborhood parks specifically, which I
Oh.
think would still maintain a 2-acre minimum for a neighborhood park, but there are the other spaces.
So we'd still have pocket parks that would be available for less than that. Within the plan.
That's correct. So
Okay.
this particular policy is in reference to neighborhood parks and the desire that specifically for neighborhood parks, we would want to have that 2 acre minimum.
Make sure we weren't boxing ourselves in.
Okay. Any other questions or comments regarding 6.5-I-3? Okay, I'm going to start with a comment for 6.5-I-4, and I'd like to see the inclusion of the word abilities, because we really should meet the needs of citizens of all ages, abilities and interests, referencing our inclusive efforts. I almost felt like 2 and 4, I-2 above and I-4 could be combined into one policy. Seemed a little bit redundant to me. That's not a deal breaker for me, but I definitely think 4 should have the word abilities in there. Anyone else on that one?
Where were you putting ability?
Citizens of all ages, abilities, and interests. That's really important, I think. Anybody else on 4? No?
No, I think you're right. The accessibility in
Mhm.
I-2 speaks to that. That's right.
Yeah, okay. I don't think it can be emphasized enough. Okay, so we are going to go to 6.5-I-5. I'm looking at my screen for your guys' hands being raised if anybody does that. So my question is on this one, Cindy, is if I recall correctly, and this is for Kathy also, a developer has the option to either pay the park fees, right? Or to opt out and build a park, right? In lieu of those fees. Is that correct?
So I think what you're referencing is the parkland dedication ordinance. That's something that the city has had in place for some time.
Mhm.
For residential subdivision projects, there is an obligation to provide parkland when you're constructing new ownership residential development. And so one of the requirements is for a contribution towards our
Right.
parkland. The ordinance does allow for an option of an in lieu fee payment should the city choose to accept that.
Right.
It could be a combination of fees and parkland. There's a formula that's in the parkland dedication ordinance that identifies based on the number of new residents that are being added, how much parkland would be the equivalent to support
Right.
that new development. So, but the ordinance itself does give the option of land dedication and or in lieu fee. And so the modifications to this policy is sort of referencing the options that the parkland dedication ordinance allows.
So does the city retain the right to decide how they want that obligation met, or is it up to the developer?
It's the parkland dedication ordinance gives the option for the city to make that determination.
Okay, good. Okay, that was my question on that one. Anybody else on that one? 6.5-I-6. Commissioner Mitra?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was just a little late. And in connection to that question, is that city decides, is there any guidelines on the city somewhere where, how do we decide that? Or is it arbitrary decisions by?
The parkland dedication ordinance does have some general guiding information on parkland dedication. I think ultimately it speaks to the city's long-term goal of how much park space that we're trying to achieve at the build-out period. And so taking that into consideration, as well as proximity to other parks and maybe needs that of that particular neighborhood may be different. And so it sometimes really is dependent on the neighborhood and the setting for where that park is. And so there is flexibility for the city to determine that. Oftentimes that's done in as part of that public review period of the proposed housing development. Similar to the process that we had with Summer Hills project at Bishop Ranch 6.
Commissioner Dorlick?
How are we defining non-residential? Is that mixed use, commercial? Was it 5+ units, which is typically considered non-residential because it's commercial? residential be 1 to 4. So how are we, do we include retail? So how are we defining non-residential?
Yeah, I believe the Parkland dedication ordinance applies to a project that's submitting a subdivision map. And so typically that's 4 or more than 4 units within a parcel.
But does it include when it says non-residential development, I mean, are we talking about commercial development, retail development, et cetera?
So right now in the Parkland dedication ordinance, it is only related to residential for sale subdivisions. It doesn't speak to non-residential developments.
But we encourage the contribution for that.
That's right.
It's not required, but we encourage it.
Yeah. Right.
And that includes public art as well.
Well, public art, there are different policies related to public art. And depending on the type of development project that it is, residential actually. So there's a Parkland, there's a beautification fee that incorporates public art contribution as part of that. And so there are different options for public art, whether that's contribution of a fee or the placement of art. So it will vary depending on the type of project that it is, but specifically for non-residential developments such as commercial developments, those do have a public art requirement as a condition of that development approval. And that could potentially be met either through a piece of art or payment of the beautification fee.
Commissioner Osland?
Yeah, so Cindy, I'm still not clear about non-residential developers. What that means.
So if the development is meant for somebody to live on site as a resident that considers that their place of residence. So it's if the development is meant for somebody to live there outside of like a senior care facility or memory care facility, we have if they're proposing units as defined by basically the state as what a housing unit is considered, that would be non-residential. If it's not considered a living unit by the state.
Okay, anything else at this time? Okay, so we're going to go to 6.5-I-7. I'm going to get the ball rolling on this one. I know that this whole effort is part of the general plan update. And Cindy, I think I see you knew this one was coming. And I know that the housing element is a huge focus of this, but we have this opportunity as a Parks and Community Services Commission to make some changes to this element, and we certainly take that seriously. There's been a lot of work done on the Walking District Master Plan, and I feel like this language is very soft, and I would prefer to see rather than encourage, which leaves it open to nothing being done, to require, and I specifically would recommend that we say instead of encourage, that we require when physically possible property owners in the city core to implement the interconnected opportunities of the San Ramon Parks, Open Space, Trails, and Recreation Master Plan and the Walking District Master Plan, which provides the long-term vision for pedestrian-oriented access and connectivity. I do not feel that the word encourage does justice to all of the work that we've done to implement the master plan. I don't feel that it holds property owners accountable for following our vision. And I believe if they want to do business in the city of San Ramon, they need to understand the importance of this to us as a community on so many different levels. So that is a huge point for me. And I just want to get the ball rolling on that note and then pass it over to Commissioner Osland.
Thank you, Chair Keniston Lee. I couldn't agree more. I had circled the word encourage and I wrote require. I just feel it's kind of a wiggle word and I don't like it. I think with a statement like this and a policy, it needs to be very clear and directive. And I agree with Chair Keniston Lee that this is something that we have been working very hard on for quite some time. And we really need to emphasize that it's clear and there's no ambiguity. So I also agree with your language. I didn't add those other words, but I circled, take
Require.
out, strike out, encourage and add and replace it with require.
Right.
Commissioner Lopez Lucy.
I agree with Commissioner Hudson Lee that it should be required because I too say encourage is not, it doesn't mean that they have to do anything. They just look at it and no action is sometimes not taken. So I agree.
Yeah.
It should be required.
Commissioner Ellicott Pesic.
I appreciate those comments, absolutely. And I guess I don't know whether this is the time and place to discuss it, but what I'm wondering is why are we using the word encourage? And if there's a reason that we're using it, I think we need to go back and think about how we need to restate it to address whatever the concern is that perhaps is latent in the use of the word.
Sure. So great question. And the general plan provides guiding and implementation policies. At the same time, recognizing that property owners have property rights as far as at what point in time are you going to require a property owner to implement the guiding policies within your master plan or your walking district master plan. So what we would need to consider is what is the trigger for requiring somebody to implement? Is it if they're a new business moves in? Is it somebody has taken new ownership of the property? Is it related to new construction or how much construction is happening in order to implement? So I think by encouraging and creating a policy that recognizes that the city has created goals and guiding documents to encourage the implementation of these, is that we would need to consider first what is the trigger for requiring somebody to do that, and if that policy is as restrictive as requiring, then with every property owner that is in that district or within that area, well, in this case, the Parks Master Plan applies to every property in the city because it's a document that guides the entire city. How would we make that what is the trigger for those requirements?
So can I add on to that, or are you still? Go ahead. I'll wait till you're done.
Well, and I had a feeling there might be more to the story, and I understand that. And I think perhaps still some reworking of the language to, and I don't have it right now off the top of my head, but, take all steps necessary to work with property owners in order to implement or something along those lines. I think with a little more time, I could help draft that language, but I'm sure you have internal attorneys and others that can do that. But I think I totally understand why require is problematic. You could certainly look at, like you said, the new property owners and adding a certain requirement or new businesses. But I think the language could be still made stronger to suggest that all reasonable steps necessary to get there. And at the same time, there may need to be a reasonableness because we don't want to put us in the position of saying you have to, go to court and do eminent domain in order to make it happen. But I think this needs to be written in a way that suggests this is a very high priority and that we'll take all reasonable steps to make this happen.
It's a good point in the sense of the balance of what a city can require a developer to do on property that doesn't necessarily belong to them or what's considered public right of way. And so we do need to always consider when we're requiring a project to implement something that may be a city goal, what is the private and public benefit of that requirement?
You know, to your point, I'm concerned about paying lip service to having these developers, you know, promote our walking district, to connect with our walking district. And I think this idea of language is a real tricky one. And you being an attorney know better than anybody else. But that's why I say require when physically possible. If there's a property that is not physically viable to do this, well, we appreciate that, right? I'm concerned about using too tame a language that really just pays lip service and doesn't contain any teeth and doesn't require any action. Little music to the meeting. So that's why I'm concerned. And here's the thing, because I know Cindy and your team, you guys work really hard on the general plan, and I kudos for that. And Parks is a very happy, friendly, many times it's an easy topic, right? It's an easy thing sometimes because we're doing good stuff. But sometimes we have things before us that are hard. And sometimes there is language before us where we have to go back and we have to do more work. This is not a slam dunk policy. This is something we have to really work on. And I would hope staff would listen to what we're saying and go back and within, of course, the confines of the law and confines of risk and reward, come back to us. But I'm still feeling very connected to require. And I respect that Cindy's an expert in land use and planning, and you guys know what the parameters are. But I guess if nothing else, I would like for you to come away with this meeting hearing what we're saying, that we want to give it teeth, that we want people to know that if you want to develop in this community, this is something that's really important to us, and that we need to put as strong language as we can in there. And while being appropriate, right? To your point, I think you are thinking of all sides of it. But this is not going to be an easy one that we're going to just sign off on. And I know you're getting feedback today, but we're just not going to sign off and say, well, yeah, that's just encourage them, because we know that's not going to get what we want for our community and our residents. So anybody else? I've got Commissioner Dorlick.
Well, I think in I have to disagree in a couple of ways. Number one, the walking district is all within Bishop Ranch.
Right.
So there is no other developer that's going to come in and have an effect on that. It's within the parameters of Bishop Ranch. And Sunset Development is totally committed to that, as with the City Walk project and Summerhill and et cetera. So I don't think there's any issues there with the City Walk project and that vision. I think the people who own the land there and the city are in lockstep, no questions there. This is also non-residential. There are requirements on the residential side, subdivisions, et cetera. That's why we were asking for the definition of non-residential. So these are not housing units, these are other building developers, right? So that's one. And number two, there are checks and balances that the Planning Commission has in effect that does negotiate those those fees if they're applicable. So I would just not want to put that strong of a language in there, because it's something that may not be enforceable. It may create an issue that we don't want to have in the city. And again, I don't think City Walk's in jeopardy. It's all within the parameters of Bishop Ranch. And in order to dictate that as a requirement, I think is going to be less incentive for a non-residential developer, to come into the city. And I don't know what percentage there are of non-residential developers.
Point of clarification, in this policy, Cindy, you talk about property owners. Are you talking about a certain classification of property owner, or that's all property owners?
This particular policy, so I-7, it would apply to the way that it's written applies to all property owners.
Exactly. Okay.
Talking about I-6.
No, we got past that.
Okay.
Yeah,
I-
okay, so that is, it is in fact all property owners. I
Yeah,
just want to
but
make that point.
But I still encourage is an appropriate word in a strategic plan.
Encourage does not
in a
get resolved.
policy.
Yeah,
Yeah, we're not looking at an implementation guide here. We're looking at a strategy moving forward. So the implementation is done at the legal level, at the commission, at the, at the planning level, at the permit level, et cetera. So I myself would continue to say encourage is a strong enough word within a strategic plan where we're looking at a 20 to 25 year, vision.
I'm going to go next to Commissioner Osland, but first say that the general plan is a guiding document. And you need to lay the foundation of expectations right off the bat and not try to mitigate it later in the process when it's too late. So I'm going to go to Commissioner Osland now.
Yeah, I'm still in strong agreement to add require. I feel that this is in the city core and all property owners. I mean, I feel that this is really setting the tone as partners, that we feel very strongly that this is how we want things to go. And I feel that if we say encourage, it's just a little bit ambiguous. And so I'm going to hold my line with, I really feel it needs to say require.
And I'd like to say that when physically possible acknowledges that it's not always going to be possible. It's a reasonable clause in there. Okay, Commissioner Ellicott Pesek.
Possibly to wrap this up.
Mhm.
I think the bottom line is we need better language here, and whether we need to create a bifurcation where we're talking about existing property owners versus future property owners. I love the fact that we've got Bishop Ranch as essentially as close as we can to a partnership in a lot of ways with what we're doing. But I don't think you can simply rely on current existing relationships. And likewise, as much as we all are of a mind, I think generally here, when you go back years from now and there are different parks commissioners or different people, the word encourage is just a wet noodle. So I do agree that it's probably not the message we want to send. I also agree with Commissioner Dorlick that require is probably not going to work here. Again, not being the expert on this. And it may be that it is required to the extent allowed by law. If, I don't even know if about physically possible, because that is a whole other thing, right? Like whose definition of that? But I think the bottom line, and I think you have the response, which is we want more than, I'm sorry, a wet noodle. And at the same time, I do not want to box us in to a situation where it's unenforceable. So there may need to be some crafting of language to get the point across without putting us in a legally untenable situation where we ultimately then don't get what we want done. But I do think, I agree that encouraging is too weak. And when other people come into this and they look at this and go, encourage, okay, yeah, I get they encouraged it, but it doesn't tell the story. So
Yeah.
Thank you for.
Yeah, thank you for that. No, that was good. So I think, Cindy, you get the gist that we'd like to revisit that language.
Yeah, I'll take that feedback and we'll work with our staff to come up with something that is going to address that.
Can we expect this to come back to us, by the way? We're going to continue through these, but is this going to?
As we work towards the update of the document, there will be opportunities as we get to the public drafts that the entire element itself can be provided to all of our different committees and commissions that are working on various aspects of these elements. So we certainly would pass that through with our park staff.
So moving along, we are at 6.5-I-8. Any questions or comments on that one? That was 0.8. Okay. Then we're at 6.5-I-9.
I actually do have it on. I didn't hit it fast enough.
I am sorry. There
Yes. So Cindy, is this a change to what we already agreed to with the City Walk master plan?
This isn't applying to any particular project. The update to final occupancy is just to make sure that we know when that trigger is prior to occupancy. doesn't necessarily always is definitive. And so we want to make sure we're specific with just adding on final occupancy. But it's not specific to any particular project. Anything that has already been approved has specific development agreements in particular with City Walk on how that's going to be implemented.
So that waits and that agreement still stands, that master plan.
That development agreement wouldn't be affected by these changes to this language.
Okay.
Okay, 6.5-I-9. Comments, questions? Okay. 6 point.
I did, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Commissioner
I
Wilson.
also felt that require was a stronger way to communicate this and require the development of landscaped and dedicated spaces, public spaces, parkways, trail systems, and recreational facilities in new developments. I feel that encourage is still very wiggle word.
I wrote, isn't this already required to some extent? Cindy, do you want to comment on that?
I think I had mentioned before, there's a balance of the things that the city can and can't require a developer to do. In particular with private property, there is, as part of any new development, work that's done as part of the public review process of how to put in at least the minimums that we have in the city. We have minimum requirements for walkways, landscape areas, but if a site is adjacent to something or very particular in that neighborhood where we may want to look at opportunities to connect to a trail system or put in parking to support that trail system or things like that. Those are not things that we can necessarily obligate a property owner or a new developer to do, but the language here has been in the general plan for quite some time. And it's our opportunity to work with the developer to put in some site-specific things that may be unique to that particular project. But we do have some minimums that are already required as part of any new development. This just looks at opportunities that may arise with each project.
Did you have anything further on that, Commissioner Wilson? Okay. All right, let's go to 6.
Commissioner Kennison,
Oh, sorry.
that's okay.
Yeah.
I can enlighten.
Commissioner Ellicott Pesic.
There's my ding again. One of the things I'm struggling with,
Yeah.
and maybe this is just that I'm not completely here. When I think about who this document is written to, it's the guiding and implementing policies. And I feel like in some respects, there's essentially two audiences, right? It's the developer and people like that who look at what they need to do in order to come forth with a plan, right? The other audience I feel like is in this is staff, planning, city council, right? We're like, and us.
And us.
And us.
Mhm.
Okay, so maybe not us this right now today, but us in 2 years or 3 years. So one of the things I think about when we're talking about this require is, encourage the development of landscaping dedicated versus require. So who is it we're telling to require it? Are we telling ourselves and the city and the staff that this is a priority and we want this required? Or are we telling the developer this is what we require in order to work with us? And so one of the things I'm wondering about is maybe some of the language needs to be, something along the lines of for it to be a paramount priority to have developers develop landscape and dedicated public spaces, parkways, et cetera. It's essentially stating this is a high priority rather than a total requirement versus an encouragement. There's something that says this is a high priority. Obviously, there are other high priorities that compete, but that's where I'm kind of struggling with who, when you say encourage the development or encourage developers to, who's doing the encouraging? Ultimately, whoever is approving the plans, right? On a level. And so that's where I'm like wondering if the direction needs to be more clearly to ourselves, our future selves and the staff to say, this is a paramount, this is a high priority that as part of the development, these things be included.
Yeah, a general plan is the filter through which decisions are made.
Right.
That's what it is.
So if that's,
So-
the decisions are being made by city staff, city
Yes.
parks, city commissions, city this and that.
Yes.
And I think that makes the language potentially easier because we can't require ourselves to do something that's against the law.
Okay,
or
I'm gonna,
against other priorities.
actually, I'm gonna go to
Okay.
Kathy. She needs to say something.
Well, yeah, I wanted to kind of draw a picture for you too, because if you take into account, let's say a very small housing development that's right next to Central Park. We have some that are fairly close, right? And so if we require those little developments to do landscape dedicated public space, parkway, trail systems, recreation facilities in their new development, but they are on top of Central Park. And instead, we could have those in lieu fees, which we could use to improve Central Park attributes or other places. That's a higher and stronger benefit. So by having a little wiggle on that language, we have the ability to work with that and go, that's not going to help what we need as the broader picture. So I understand what you're all saying. Absolutely. And I really appreciate what you're saying. So we need stronger language, but I too get a little nervous with require, because I don't know if that's going to tie our hands on some of these that we really need some flexibility.
Yeah, through the chair, if I
please.
could also just add on to that. Oftentimes in planning, as we have mandates and requirements that we tell the developer how to design their project, one of the things that we really need to consider is the nexus to the requirement. Simply just putting require in the general plan doesn't automatically make it legal for us to say that you're not meeting the general plan because the language says require. To put in public spaces for the public on private property, there really has to be a correlation of the nexus of public benefit to somebody privately carving out private property for the public's use. And so oftentimes you'll find our language in the general plan is as encouraged as a way for the city to work with a developer, where we typically don't have the authority to require them to set aside private property for public use, as an opportunity for us to negotiate that. But it's a balance of the nexus, and there are a number of different case law that points to making sure that just because a developer wants to build something, that a city has to be able to balance the mandatory things that they contribute. Oftentimes we do that through fees. And so parkland dedication fee is one of those city beautification fees where we take those fees and actually do things like tree installations and other sidewalk improvements, public art in public places, all of those types of contributions that a developer is required to make, and that we have done fee studies and other mandatory requirements in order to require those things. Those we have a clear nexus for, but setting aside private property for public use is not oftentimes one that may be legally defensible.
So before I go to mute you to Commissioner Roseland, I'd like to say to Commissioner Ellicott-Pesick's point, I mean, I think you hit it right on the head with who the stakeholders are here, right? And this document and these policies will mean different things to each person. To developer, you know, if they're worth their weight, they will have read what our priorities are. They'll have read what is meaningful to us before they come up with a conceptual project, before they come up with a concept even, right? I'd rather nip it in the bud and let them know. And maybe for the ones that don't require the word require, it is wording it in such a way that they know clearly, and I don't think encourage it really necessarily does that it's a priority. I do happen to think that the walking district and the interconnectivity policy item needs require, but I feel like if it is the city council, or if it is the planning commission, or if it is the parks commission, you know, it guides how we evaluate policy opportunities for staff. As you mentioned, you know, they're going to look and see, well, what has been set in our guiding document, our guiding policy document, before we go to one of our policy bodies. We're going to look at that because that's going to guide within the parameters, as Cindy's saying, of law, what we come to people with. And so it sets our priorities. So I actually love the fact that you use the term priority. I think for Cindy and the planning team and our parks team, clearly for many of us up here, the language isn't strong enough and it's not communicating the fact that we have these priorities in terms of policy that guides our function. And so I think I am confident that Cindy's taking that away with her and that they will work on that. Commissioner Osland?
Yeah, and I think, thank you for adding all of that. Encourage works for me in a lot of them. But there are some here that are like, I'm feeling pretty strong about it. And I think that we're in a very unique situation here in the city of San Ramon. We've got a core that we're going to be developing, adding housing, rearranging it, making it look different. And we have a walking district plan. We have a city walk. We've got all sorts of things that are like in the works. And so I think what you're picking up from, at least for me, is passion about making sure that we do this really right. We don't have another chance to change it or fix it. And so let's really, really think about how our language, and so that with our partners who we're working with, that there isn't ambiguity or ways to kind of get around it or like, that's not going to work. I really feel that, we've done a lot of work within the community and with this Parks and Community Services around the things that we desire for our public spaces, our community gatherings, connectivity, and all of that. And I think that's the point I want to make. The language and all of that, I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. I don't have those words. I did a thesaurus and trying to find other words for require, and they're very strong and definitive, and I don't think they're right either, but we need to work on that.
Yeah. And I've got my notes here, so we'll definitely take that away. I wanted to kind of, make one more point as far as the streets and the improvements on the public streets, because most of the walking district relates to the public space on those public streets. Really good example of how we go about implementing requirements versus encouraging things is that we have state law such as complete streets. It's actually an ordinance that the city has to adopt that addresses mobility, access, considering pedestrian access, bike access on our streets. And it requires us to implement those. And it comes from top down from the state to require that that the city consider complete streets. Whereas with private development, because it is on public property, oftentimes we're not able to mandate improvements there, and which is oftentimes why when we have this policy that encourages with each new development that comes in, we can work with them to implement those things. Summerhill, another example, in the walking district, the newest development that we've designed with a developer, putting in those park benches, widening those sidewalks, doing the landscape improvements. It's a really good example, even though we didn't have a policy at the time that the development was in, working with them because we were just in the middle of getting that walking district completed. That's how we typically work with a new project in getting these things that we believe are both beneficial to the city as well as to the image of that new development and assists in that in making both the city better and the project better.
Yeah. What I'll say about that, Cindy, is I have watched a lot of planning commission meetings, and as I recall, the Summerhill project was a fairly conciliatory, friendly, cooperative process. They're not always going to be that way. And I don't think we're thinking about the Summerhills. We're thinking about the non-Summerhills, if you will. Yeah. And so that's what we're thinking about. Yeah, because of course that seemed like a very collaborative thing. And I think we're thinking about everything. So I'll leave it at that. But thank you for taking our feedback on that. We appreciate it. And I also did want to say, every time I see you up there dealing with general plan stuff, you always do it professionally and with poise. You really do.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Okay, so we are at six. Now I've even lost my own track here. No, actually we're at 6.5-I-10, right?
Yes.
Okay. Any questions or concerns on that one? Commissioner Lopez Lucy?
Well, I know that we have joint, with the San Ramon School, the San Ramon Valley Unified School District. Would you kind of explain how we can collaborate and get this in, after school hours, we get charge of the facilities and everything. So can you kind of explain how that we're working with that?
Well, I think I'm going to have to pass this one on to Kathy because I'm not all that familiar with exactly how their team works with the school district.
Yeah, we have joint use agreements for all of the school parks. So the city maintains and they're available to the public to use. We have the joint use facilities at the pools, the gyms and the theater, which we share. And so I think that's really what this is going to. So if the school district were to build a new school, then we would want to find ways to be joint use with them and to continue in that partnership. And then to expand it to other areas. If we come up with something the school has and we want to be able to figure out how to make it joint use so we can get more access for the public.
Does that answer your question? Okay, good.
But I just wanted to
Yeah,
explain.
no, for sure. Helpful. I love the fact that you went from confer to collaborate. That's the kind of thing I love to see, right? Yep. Okay. 6.5-I-11. Any questions or comments on that one? I wrote down that I would want us maybe to expand the definition and the scope of it, seek partnership opportunities with the private sector and other public agencies to enhance park facilities and provide recreational activities. I know particularly with our trail signage program that we have now, perhaps we would want to include that reference in there, perhaps a reference to recreational programs in addition to the activities that would make it a little more robust, I think. Just a couple of thoughts. Anybody else on that one? 6.5-I-12. I anticipated you. I thought Commissioner Ellicott Pesic, you were pushing. There you, oh, Commissioner Osland.
Yeah, so I'm wondering why I'm looking at the identify document and seek to preserve and protect sites of historic interest. Why we struck that last sentence out. I'd like to keep in develop opportunities to acquire or preserve sites of historic interest.
I assume there was no more historic property to acquire in our sphere of influence. Is that not true?
No, because as the years go by, 1960 is now it's historic. So mid-century modern. So there are opportunities still within the city.
Okay. Commissioner Lopez Lucy, do you want to add to that?
Well, I don't know, that I thought we didn't have any more because of working in the foundation. But I've never thought that 60 years is historical, and I'm not sure you can get on the historic register at 60 years. But I'm not savvy to whether that is, but I don't consider 60 years historical.
I'm feeling really close to being historical.
Yeah, no, I believe it is.
Can
So
I
I'd
help
like
with
to
that?
keep that on. That would be my recommendation. The second half of that, develop opportunities.
No, I was going to add, I think the reason that we originally suggested that we removed it is because it was a little bit redundant. Because we thought identify, document, and seek to preserve and protect sites of historic interest was basically saying, look at all opportunities to acquire, maintain, preserve, protect. So I think it was a simply simplification was the point that we were after. But it's great feedback.
Cindy, did you just want to take a note of that? Anything you wanted to say? We're good.
No, I think Kathy was spot on as far as just making this more direct and
Okay,
concise.
perfect.
So
Okay.
acquire seems to be the main word that's missing.
I think that is Commissioner Osland's one of her points.
Okay.
Yeah. 6.5-I-13. Any questions or comments? I do have one. I feel like it's a little passive. I'd like to see, instead of seek opportunities to preserve and protect open space, et cetera, seek, explore, and pursue opportunities to preserve and protect open space, and also per the open space planning document that we've all been heard about. I'd like to see a reference to partnering with or collaborating with other agencies. I feel this is a perfect place to acknowledge that that is a real healthy way to protect our open space. Any thoughts, additions? Okay. All
Through the
right.
chair, but
Yeah.
I know the open space and conservation element is not in front of you, but that document does actually have language about that expands on the open space policies. But
Yeah.
I feel that that other document does also have that language already in there. So
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure that it does. However, I feel like we need to shore up this language. It doesn't make it much longer and it gives it a little bit more of a punch. So I get it's probably very thoroughly covered in the other one. I'd like to see us reinforce that and support that concept.
I tend to agree, particularly with respect to making note here of, and perhaps it's in as well as in collaboration with or something like
Yeah,
that. So that it's clear that it's not just ourselves, but also
Yes,
opportunities for
yes.
collaboration.
Yeah.
or
Okay.
Partnerships.
All right, we're going to turn the page. We're in the home stretch, gang. We're going to go to 6.5-I-14. Any questions or comments? Okay, I wrote that I would love a little elaboration on Big Canyon and where this came from. It kind of came out of left field for me a little bit, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
Can you explain a little bit about that?
Circle that too.
Sure. Actually, Big Canyon has been identified as a future park opportunity. I think it's in the master plan as well as when we look at long-term build out for the city at some point that parkland would be considered part of the city's public park space. Big Canyon, by reference, is on the west side of the city, west of essentially where the city limits are on the west side, north of Gateway Shopping Center, and generally where the laborers union property is on the west side there. And so it's a policy that we've had at least since the 2020 general plan, which was adopted in 2001, that refers to the desire of the city at some point, if Big Canyon were offered as an opportunity, that we would work with the property owners there to add it to the city's park system.
Okay. All righty. 6.5-I-15. Questions, thoughts? All right. 6.5-I-16. I just had a big exclamation mark. I love anytime we talk about safety, cost effectiveness, always good things to strive for. Anybody else? And 6.5-I-17. Okay, and 6.5-I-18.
Chair Keniston Lee.
Yes.
I wanted to
Oh,
comment
yes.
on that one. I
Yeah.
do like the word maintain rather than pursue.
Okay, for
I like-
6.5-I-17.
Correct.
You like maintain.
Mm-hmm. I feel it's a stronger word.
Maintain versus pursue. So one suggests that we aren't doing it and one suggests we're already doing it and we need to keep doing it.
Yeah, through the chair, if I could
Mhm.
address that. So this particular policy recognizes that the fact that there are existing homes that may be on the edge of the city limits that will never have an opportunity to be within a half mile of the park space. And so we can continue to pursue opportunities for that, but there are some areas where homes have been developed within that subdivision where half a mile, we will not have an opportunity to provide parkland there. And so in looking at our maps, because of the physical inabilities to do that, that's why we've changed that language to, instead of maintaining, to continue to pursue that standard.
So am I reading it correctly that it's sort of an aspirational reference and it assumes maintenance as well as aspiring to get that parameter for all homes.
It does, yeah.
Commissioner Roseland, does that answer?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, good. 6.5-I-18. One thing that I wanted to do is keep the reference to accessibility as well as, connectivity. For me, that's an important distinction. Did anybody have any additional thoughts, Commissioner Roseland?
I had that as well.
Yeah.
I agree.
I think we did it, guys. I think we got through all of them. Are there any additional questions? Any additional comments?
I do.
Commissioner Roseland? Then we'll go to
I wanted
Commissioner
to go-
Ellicott Pesek.
Go back to our park classifications,
Mhm.
the public spaces.
Yeah.
And I wanted to revisit the last statement of the public spaces. The city may allow for partial or full parkland dedication credit for these types of public spaces. What do you mean by may allow?
So parkland dedication ordinance, again, allows the city at our discretion to accept in lieu fees or parkland to meet the parkland dedication ordinance. And so the city has the discretion to accept one or the other or both in order to meet that requirement and to provide a credit for that. So in the past, projects have suggested that maybe installing a fountain as part of, a visible fountain as part of their subdivision should get some credit for parkland. And in those types of situations, the city has considered that request and may or may not have accepted that as adequate to satisfy parkland dedication. And so it just gives us the opportunity to consider that we may allow for credit to be given in certain situations, but we have the ability to also say no.
You have the discretion.
Yeah.
So how do you decide on what the credit is? And is there like a formula that's used?
So there isn't, so we continue to do this with each project that is providing parkland as part of their dedication to meet the parkland dedication requirements. The ordinance itself doesn't have a formula. It has been with each project that we've determined what improvements would get park credit. We work with our public services team and our public works team and parks department to determine which things will get credit. Some improvements that are going in public parks may be to the benefit of the property owner, such as water filtration, for stormwater, things like that. Those may not necessarily get full credit because there's a certain benefit to the property owner. But putting in play structures, putting in this 2-acre park site, that may then deserve the full credit because that's going to be publicly accessible, owned by the city. And so the improvements that are going into that park, the designs that they prepare that would typically, so I should also back up. Parkland dedication ordinance only requires the dedication of land. It doesn't actually require the improvements to be put into that park facility. So that's something really key to the parkland dedication ordinance is that somebody may provide us parkland in the case of Henry Ranch Park, but the city itself would have to then improve that park in order to make it a functioning park. And so oftentimes credit will be given if as part of the project, the developer is actually improving that park, that there should be some credit due because they're going to make it a turnkey park. And so that's what we're talking about when we're looking at credit, is that some improvements may be kind of over the top type of improvements, and some may just be walking paths or trails and more passive use. And so different credits will be given to the types of improvements that are put into those parks.
Commissioner Ellicott Pesek.
So I was kind of laughing because I just wanted to put a little, one of my pet issues is about water. And we've mentioned fountains and water filtration and all kinds of things. And I don't know, I'm not suggesting this is the appropriate place to put it, but I just want to throw it out there. In 6.5-I-18, we talk about seating and shade structures. I just like to continue to put that bit in where it's appropriate to be considering bottle refilling stations, which I am concerned about the heat. I'm concerned about dehydration and exhaustion, which can lead to, medical issues, as well as, thinking about I guess I'm supposed to be done about just being good for the environment in terms of, encouraging reusable bottles and things like that. So I don't know that this is an appropriate place, but I do want to continue to beat this drum that I'd like to see more bottle water refilling stations, especially in this kind of environment where we're trying to make them accessible to everybody and take into consideration, shade and seating. So
Thank you, Commissioner Osler.
So did we finish on the last one, I-19?
No.
I don't think we did that one.
Yeah,
Did we do that one?
could have
No.
sworn because I said keep accessibility and connectivity.
that was 18.
That was 18. We
18.
didn't finish
What am I
19.
missing?
It's
19,
the
scroll
last
down.
page on page 13.
Thank you for keeping me on the straight and narrow. Okay, does anybody have any comments or questions?
I do.
Yeah. No
It's
wonder
my
you caught me on
favorite
that one.
word.
There you go. Go ahead.
I think this is another one where we need to be a little stronger with our language rather than encourage.
There it is.
Like to not necessarily require, but something much stronger.
Mhm.
And I'm also, that is the reference to that we just talked about with the public spaces. The city may allow for partial or full parkland credit, dedication credit. So just want to make sure that, I think in the essence of really just trying to do the right thing for the city of San Ramon is really where I'm coming from. And I just really want to make it a pleasant experience for all the new people that are going to be living in the downtown city core and any of the development. And so that we really do enhance these public spaces and make it pleasant and with all sorts of different kinds of attributes and not just ignore it and pay off. So I think it's extremely important that we tighten this one up as well.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? I would just end on I know, especially in planning, you guys work on a lot of deadlines to get things to the state and get things where they need to go. But I think I speak for a lot of folks up here when I say, given all the energy around the language in this document, that I'd like to have another opportunity to review it. And so as appropriate, please make sure that it gets back to us so that we can look at where your thoughts are, where your reactions and implementation of our feedback, how it's sort of manifesting. Okay. Thank you, Cindy.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, gang. Let's go to the next item. Get to my agenda. Here we go. Okay, item 8.2, outdoor pickleball courts, location recommendations. And Jennifer Galt and Becky Adams are going to, I think Jennifer is going to talk to us about that. Okay, great. From policy to pickleball.
I'm locked out.
Way to the other.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, commissioners, for having me here this evening. I'm here to present the outdoor pickleball court location options to you. Becky Adams and I worked on this together, and she's also here this evening to help answer questions when we get to the end. As you know, pickleball is the fastest growing sports, one of the fastest growing sports, and the city has received numerous requests for outdoor pickleball courts. Based on the feedback, along with the guidance from the master plan, the Parks and Community Services Department visited the existing parks in San Ramon to see what options we have available. I'm here this evening to gain your feedback on the options. Staff is recommending that the Parks Commission approve the reallocation of 1 tennis court into 4 pickleball courts and direct staff to include the project in the 23-24 CIP list for consideration during the annual budget process.
Currently, the Parks and Community Services Department operates 6 indoor pickleball courts through the open gym program at Iron Horse Middle School. The courts are available on Sundays from 4:30 to 7:30 PM for ages 6 and up. Entry is $6 per person, allowing them use of the courts for 3 hours. The indoor courts are very popular during the winter months, when the weather's cooler and there's rain and issues outside. However, with the pandemic came the demand for the outdoor courts. Currently, there is no dedicated outdoor court space, dedicated public outdoor court space for pickleball play in San Ramon. Through our research, staff visited Canyon Lakes and Crow Canyon Country Club's new pickleball courts, which we'll reference tonight. In recent years, cities have begun to convert tennis courts into pickleball courts. One tennis court can accommodate 4 pickleball courts in the same square footage. While one tennis court can accommodate up to 4 players when playing doubles, pickleball can accommodate up to 16 players while playing doubles in the same amount of space. As you can see on the diagram here, 4 courts will fit in the existing area of a tennis court with 7 feet between the courts and 6 feet of spacing to the tennis net, which would be placed in between the 2 sides. All right. The city of San Ramon currently operates 26 outdoor tennis courts throughout the community, which are indicated on the map in red. We have 4 courts at Athens Downs, 6 courts at Cal High, 3 at Central Park, 1 at Coyote Crossing, 8 courts at Doherty Valley High School, 2 courts at Rancho San Ramon, 1 court at Suyan Park, and 1 court at Valley View Park. There are 20 courts with lights for evening play, 4 at Athens Downs, 3 at Cal High, 3 at Central Park, 8 at Doherty Valley, and 2 at Rancho San Ramon. It's important to note that Sunrise Ridge Park is going to have 1 additional tennis court upon completion of the park in 2023. According to the Sports and Fitness Industry Association's report, pickleball is the fastest growing team sport in America, with 21.3 increase in participants from 2019 to 2020. It's a great workout, it's social, it's easy to learn, its low impact and fast-paced games make it appealing to all ages. While a fun, family-friendly sport, it's also very popular among the aging population. Pickleball was identified in the master plan to help reflect to meet the needs of an aging and diverse population. The City and Parks and Community Services Department has received numerous requests for outdoor pickleball courts. As I mentioned, many cities have begun to convert tennis courts to pickleball courts. However, in some cases, this has caused controversy due to the increased noise and visitors to the parks. There are large tennis and pickleball communities here in San Ramon. With these recommendations we're bringing you today, we took into consideration the needs of both of these communities. Will this solve the growing need of each of the sports? No, we know that. Eventually, we're going to need to come back and look at this again as future parks are developed. However, we think this is a step forward in the right direction to address the needs of San Ramon community as a whole. As noise is a common topic which comes up when addressing the need of pickleball, staff research noise levels. The decibels of pickleball are louder than tennis because of the materials that are used to make the paddles and the ball. Frequent pickleball sounds are typically about 70 decibels at about 100 feet away from the strike of the ball. While the difference in decibels isn't that much higher than tennis, the pitch of the sound is different. Pickleball has a higher pitch compared to tennis, which is bothersome to some people. A beeping sound is more annoying than a rumble sound, even if those 2 sounds are of a similar level. Tennis and some other common sports produce sounds that are usually lower in pitch than pickleball, therefore less annoying. Staff identified 4 possible locations with 2 recommendations, keeping in mind many factors, including the parking, amenities, park amenities, and noise for the nearby houses. Staff recently visited Crow Canyon Country Club to see their new pickleball setup. They have a very similar setup to recommendation 1, which you'll see, recently converting 1 tennis court into 4 pickleball courts with 2 tennis courts located directly next to them. When the recommendations were brought to the Facilities Committee, some of the questions and concerns included the height of the fence that separates the pickleball and tennis courts, the sound of pickleball potentially bothering tennis players, and making sure there's enough spacing between the pickleball courts. Crow Canyon Country Club players expressed that there has not been an issue with the ball bouncing over the dividing fence. As you can see in the image here, they left the tennis net up as a barrier between the two sides. And then they also have a makeshift gate to fill that gap of the fence. They may have some balls roll out due to wind if that gate at the end isn't closed all the way, but it hasn't been an issue between the two sports of players. They also mentioned the noise between the two sports has not been an issue. Many of the players play both sports and they enjoy having the option of playing either sport at the same location. In this picture, you'll see that the kitchen area is painted a different color. That's just one option. And then here you would see at Canyon Lakes, the court is all one color, just different options you can have at different places. Staff also visited Canyon Lakes new pickleball courts. This site has 4 courts located next to each other. These are a popular location and private gated community with many players living outside of the private community. Concerns expressed regarding this location included the orientation of the courts and the directionality of the sun, which can shine into the players' eyes, along with parking concerns from residents. So this brings me to the recommendations for this evening. Staff identified 4 possible locations for pickleball courts, and I'll present 2 recommendations to the commission. Recommendation 1 is to convert one of the tennis courts, specifically tennis court number 1 at Central Park, into 4 pickleball courts. Staff recommends adding a 4-foot fence between tennis court 1 and tennis court 2 to create a separate space for pickleball and tennis, along with a gate or open section to move between the two sides as needed. There are 2 separate entrances to the area along the north and west side of the proposed courts. When we visited the other locations, players recommended making sure there's enough gates so you don't have walkers interrupting the game. So with this site, we have those, which is really nice. There's also gates at tennis courts 2 and 3, providing an entrance for each of the tennis courts as well. So there's lots of exit and entry points. Staff recommends leaving the current tennis net to provide a ball barrier between the two sides of the proposed pickleball courts, along with the addition of benches, paddle holders on the fence, signage, and permanent pickleball net systems. This proposed location provides lights for evening play, allowing the public to utilize the courts daily from dawn until 10 p.m. This would meet the need communicated by many of the residents that would like to use the courts in the evening hours in the mornings, when the temperatures are cooler. With access to evening play, staff would also be able to provide recreational opportunities for the community for classes for both youth and adults. This recommendation also allows for the optimal court layout. So the courts would be oriented north to south with the sun moving east to west, so you wouldn't get the sun shining in the eyes. With the recommended reduction of 1 tennis court at Central Park, I want to provide a snapshot of the tennis court reservation program that the PCS department has been managing over the last year. Central Park has 1 tennis court available for San Ramon residents to reserve for free. Residents can reserve the court for 1 hour up to 24 hours in advance. The courts can be reserved 7 days a week from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. and 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. Between the months of October 2021 and July 2022, there were 1,113 reservations out of 3,030 available slots. As you can see, weekday evenings and weekend mornings were the most popular, with plenty of space still available for reservations. When researching the potential locations, staff visited Central Park courts during the month of May multiple times throughout the day, Monday through Friday, to track tennis usage. The usage of the courts was recorded mornings, afternoons, and evenings, And if staff was present during the late evening for meetings and things, those times were also recorded. Out of 65 visits, only 9 instances had all 3 courts in use. As with all options, there's always pros and cons. With the location of this proposed recommendation, there is very little concern for noise as there's no adjacent housing. The existing lights would really maximize the use of the courts, allowing the public to play well into the evening hours. The lights would also allow for additional recreational program opportunities for classes. There are already 2 gates located where the proposed courts would go, along with the restrooms, parking, shade, and benches. This would also leave 2 tennis courts available for general use. This recommendation would require fencing between the proposed courts and tennis court number 2 to provide some separation between the tennis and pickleball courts. Only 2 courts would then be available at the city's largest park. However, it's important to note if the CIP would be approved and the completion of Sunrise Ridge Park, the city will gain another tennis court. There would still continue to be 26 available courts for the community in San Ramon, with the addition of 4 newly developed pickleball courts. The estimated cost for, as we saw earlier in the presentation, Crow Canyon Country Club has a very similar setup and they've been successful with their transition. The estimated cost for this recommendation is $30,000. As part of the site review, staff considered the option of converting a portion of the existing soccer field to pickleball courts. However, the cost was prohibitive. This would also require extensive outreach to the field users. This could be considered in the future to expand net sports opportunities for the community. The second recommendation is reallocating the single court to install 4 pickleball courts at Valley View Park. Here's another view of the park, and you can see the restrooms and the parking and then the adjacent housing. Valley View, while another option with little noise concern, is a high-use facility for both public tennis use and field rentals. Parking could be an issue with this location. There are no existing lights for evening play, and users would only be able to use the proposed courts from until dusk throughout the year. There's some great shade and existing picnic tables available for the waiting players. Parking is limited, and the parking and restrooms are located further away from the courts than recommendation 1. The estimated cost for this recommendation is $25,000. Staff also explored Coyote Crossing and Suyin Park as additional options. Staff decided against these locations due to the proximity of the homes, the high usage of the parks and the tennis courts, and then parking. And that concludes my pickleball presentation, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you. Okay, do we have any questions? Commissioner Ellicott Pesic?
Just one, and I just want to make sure. This is a clarifying question. Are you asking for feedback on recommendation 1 versus 2, or did you guys decide these are both recommendations?
These are both recommendations, but it's to develop, with your recommendation, we would take that to develop a CIP for the next fiscal year.
Thank you.
Okay, but in the facilities committee,
the facilities committee recommended recommendation 1.
right, okay, just want to make sure everybody
Yeah.
understood that. Okay.
Sorry.
Any other clarifying questions? Okay, so we are going to go to public comment. I want to first acknowledge that we had 8 public comment emails that were provided to the commission in advance and have been read by all the commissioners. So want to acknowledge that. Do we have any additional cards? We have one public comment card. Okay, any, just for my information, any remote comments?
No hands are raised at this time.
Okay, so Taiwan, Secountry.
Yes, thank you. So thank you for the presentation. I just went to the finance committee and I know that our revenue is still not quite up to pre-pandemic level. I'm not quite sure by next fiscal year, depending on which one that you decide to adopt, that is going to be appropriate. The reason why is because this is a very particular group of people, and you're going to give this area to them for free and taking away from other people. And if this is something you're thinking about growing, I really feel that this is more like an indoor sport. And I would really like to see the city to please work with Chevron for that particular place. I really would like to see something like Chelsea Pierce in New York City, Manhattan, to become a possible vision for our city, like a sports complex, where we can have a slew of indoor sports, such as badminton, such as pickleball. Pickleball, it's really an indoor, because, you know, even the staff just said that the sun is in, you know, the players' eyes, and if it's too hot, it's really inappropriate because, you know, you require a lot of running. So it's really an indoor sport. So what you're doing right now is really just solving the demand. I did see there were 8 demands, but it is not an ultimate solution. So ultimate solution, I really would like to see a sports complex that our community center program can work with them. So we can have badminton, pickleball, fencing, indoor swimming, ice skating, even a horse polo field, because we have a lot of, you know, horse community that, you know, are in San Ramon, but they don't, I mean, you know, sometimes they don't really have the opportunity to walk their horse. So I would really like to see that becoming available at this area. Rhythmic gymnastics. That's pretty much, other than horse polo, I didn't see a lot of these sports I just mentioned were available at Chelsea Piers when I lived in New York City. So whatever you do, please be a little bit more considerate on the cost, and because you're giving it for free. As a taxpayer, I don't mind the Central Park one because the decibel, and staff was very, very good at giving you the comparison. Normal ambience decibel is 45, tennis at 60, pickleball at 70. If you continue to develop this as an outdoor sport, you're going to hear a lot of complaints from neighbors sooner or later. So I really highly recommend that if it's possible, try to do it, you know, with the least amount of money that you can, and please work with Chevron for a possible sports complex in San Ramon. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Okay, so now, any other public
Chair.
comment? Oh. Okay, come on up.
Chair, we also do have a hand raised.
Okay, let's go with our in-person comment first, and then we'll go to our remote comment.
Good evening. Thanks for hearing me. My name's Tony Parisi. I'm a 20+ year resident of San Ramon. I'm currently the vice president of the Walnut Creek Pickleball Club. Just to give you some information, it is definitely an outdoor sport. In fact, I just came back from Newport Beach playing in a tournament, 28 so outdoor courts all day long in the heat. Not a big deal. The only time you see indoor courts typically are mostly in cold weather or bad weather facilities. And even those, I play up in Boise when I go visit the kids, they got both indoor and outdoor. Once the weather turns nice, everybody goes outdoor. Just to give you some statistics, the Walnut Creek Pickleball Club has probably 500+ members. We're growing about 30% a year. We support play every day of the week between 8 a.m. and 1 a.m. We'll try it again. Between 8 a.m. and 1 p.m. We have a sign-in every day. We provide the balls. We teach people how to play. Like people said, it is the fastest growing sport. It's also the fastest growing sport within pickleball of the 8 to 18-year-olds. So for whatever that's worth to the park, information, I thought I'd just share that. The information that I did see, and we haven't met yet, so I'm looking forward to helping with you if I can. Nets between the court and the tennis court is perfect. If you look down at Osage Park, they've actually put like a 12-foot net that runs the length of the tennis court that supports 1 court to 2 court. The other thing, just to give you some background, we converted 2 tennis courts a few years ago to 8 pickleball courts. We run full-time 8 pickleball courts, which is 24 people run at a time. Typically, 10 to 20 people waiting to play. They're quick games. They're usually 15-minute games, and then you rotate out. There's no pre-planning who you're playing with, so it's very social. I would also encourage you just to think about the next evolution, because likely you're going to want more pickleball courts. Danville converted 1 to 2, and now the understanding is they're going 12 to 14. Fairfield just opened a court 2 weeks ago. They just went to a 14 complex pickleball court. Livermore's got 4. We understand Pleasanton's coming up with some new courts. So just to give you an idea where we draw from probably Pleasanton to Fairfield. We draw from Hayward, Oakland to kind of out this direction. So we've got people coming from all over, and no matter how many courts they build, there just doesn't seem to be enough. So for whatever it's worth, I just thought I'd give you my information.
Thank you for your comments.
Thanks so much.
Thanks. Okay, let's go to our remote comment.
Hello, this is Mario Gutierrez out of the Canyon Lakes pickleball courts. I hope everybody's doing well today. I'm about a 7-8 year resident here in San Ramon, and my community built these pickleball courts mid-November of 2021. And I started a club called the Pickleballers, and we have about 180 players that, like mentioned, they're a mix of Canyon Lakes residents and non-Canyon Lake residents. I get a lot of San Ramon residents requesting to come into my club to play because they don't want to drive, and nothing against Tony's organization or courts out there, but they don't want to drive to Livermore. They don't want to drive to Pleasanton. They do not want to drive to Walnut Creek. They want to stay in San Ramon to play pickleball. And like Tony said, this is an outdoor sport. It's the fastest growing sport. Our courts are outside, and we play from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. We have lights here. We had in this private community today, from 6 o'clock p.m. to about 8:30, we had 13 people playing pickleball, and that's within a private community. Right now, I have a waiting list of San Ramon residents of I think my number's 27 as of today. I gotta keep a proper ratio of non-residents to residents, just to balance out my private community bylaws. That's our residents in San Ramon waiting to get into a private community to be able to play. I don't charge for any of this stuff. It is free, and I would expect San Ramon to open up a facility and give it free because of our tax dollars to our residents. With that being said, I hope that we do get the funding to providing 4 pickleball courts to the community. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Okay, do we have any other public comment, Madam Clerk?
No other public comments. No hands are raised.
All right, then I'm going to close public comment. I'd like to open up our commissioner comments to our facilities committee first to consider the item in committee. And I'm going to go with Commissioner Mitra first.
Thank you, Chair. So a couple of weeks back, we had the session with the facility committee. Thank you for that. And actually, we really like the presentations on the research done, decibel analysis, all the impacts, as well as the tennis court usage, because that was one of my personal concern, was that taking away one tennis court, nothing to do with the pickleball. We understand that it is the fastest growing thing. We need to provide something. But having said that, we're also taking away one of the tennis courts on that. But looking at that data, that it may not be that big an impact, looking at the usage data on that one. So that is on that. One of the other things that we talked about, the fencing, I think you brought it up, fencing, if we can make it higher than 4 feet. So I do see and appreciate that we did talk about the opening between, so that they can go and pick the ball. So I see that part, but I still see that 4 feet fencing. That is one thing I would like to know. Did you guys, was there any discussion after that? And Was it decided, no, keep it for 4 feet?
When we went and observed the other courts, when we talked to the players and Crow Canyon Country Club, they had expressed that they don't have an issue with the balls flying over the fence. So at the time we left it the same, but we can explore
But
that.
tennis ball can come this way.
Yes, it could, but they hadn't had an issue with
Okay,
it. So
all right.
we left it, but we can definitely explore that.
Sure, okay, all right. But from the facilities committee, I think after reviewing that, we recommended the option to go with the staff with the option 1, converting one of the tennis court in the Central Park to 4 pickleball courts.
Thank you. Also on the facilities committee, Commissioner Oslin.
Yes, thank you, Jennifer, for a great presentation, and thank you, public speakers, for giving us your input. The fence, I did do some reconnaissance work, and I did notice that there's nets instead of like a chain link fence. So some of the pickleball courts use a netting that goes up, and that seemed to be sufficient, and that might be a cost savings to divide. One thing I did want to point out that we talked about at our meeting was the sound of the hitting of the ball. And there was some concern about the fire station being so close to the courts and if that would be an issue, but it sounded like it probably wouldn't be. But I just wanted to make sure that that was brought up, that we did talk about that as well.
I can add to that. if you
Sure.
want. So we looked at it and the firehouse is about 200 feet away from where the proposed courts would be. And as you get about 200 feet out, the strike or the decibel sound gets to about 50 decibels as you get further out. And that's about the same as neighborhood noise and things like that. So because it's 200 feet out, I think we would be okay. And they're only open till 10 p.m. So
okay,
hopefully
great.
that-
And during my reconnaissance work, all the courts were packed with people. And it seemed to have some of the different facilities had whiteboards where, you'd put your name in and people would rotate. So it seemed like there's a lot of great coordination that we can build upon here from the city of San Ramon. And I'm all in favor of the Central Park location.
Thank you. Commissioner Ellicott Pesic. We just like to announce that you're going to speak. You get a special announcement.
This is a special seat.
It is a special seat. It is a special
Y'all look
seat.
at me. It's funny because, until recently, I thought of pickleball as something that is, in retirement communities. And my son, who is 14, came home from 4 weeks at camp and is so excited. And he said, Mom, we have to go play pickleball. And he is determined. And we actually just started doing research to find out where we could do such a thing, and learned pretty much nowhere in San Ramon, except for the gym, which that actually seemed more daunting to me. Having spoken and spent time with him and reading the public comment and learning more and more about this, I have to say I'm very, very excited about this. This seems completely appropriate. Our residents pay tax dollars to use the facilities and to have a diverse opportunity of sports and activities. While $30,000, if that was a bill coming to me, I'd probably be going ack. But, in terms of what a city does and a Parks Commission, this seems like a very reasonable amount of money to renovate a tennis court. And it's clear to me you guys did a tremendous amount of research in choosing the location. So I really think that money would be very well spent. When I think about some of our goals in parks, where we want the community coming out, we want a diverse a variety of activities to offer to people. This seems like absolutely. And in fact, I sense that this will be a much stronger need than we think. So I'm certain that this will be the beta test that will already be with planning for more. It also really encourages exercise, social connectedness, which I'm rather obsessed with right now coming out of COVID, is trying to find ways to reconnect our community. And we know, some of what brings together what is the definition of a healthy community often involves exercise, outdoor activities. I really appreciate the public comment mentioning that you don't always have to be organized about it, in the sense that you may play with people you don't know, which encourages, again, reaching out. The diversity of ages that this hits, I have certainly been reinformed or updated that this is not just a senior activity, but I love that it's, and that older people are excited about it, that middle people, and that the kids are excited about it. And so again, that provides a cross opportunity for different ages to mix too. Having said that, the more I think about the different ages mixing, the more I think the higher netting is probably critical. And especially if I'm going to go out there, I really recommend you have higher netting, because while our, you know, our professionals, if you will, our amateur professionals may be really good at keep containing the ball, I don't know that I will be, or that the young kids we're talking about will be. And so I really think it's important to respect the tennis folks and anybody else that doesn't want to be hit by a ball. So really encourage the higher fencing. I do want to say that I think this is a great location, but having spent a lot of time at Central Park, particularly at Central Park 2, it is a traffic problem or parking problem. To me, I think that we do need to anticipate, especially if you're talking about taking a in the afternoons and early evenings, particularly when we have soccer and baseball out there. It is packed. It is hard to find a parking space. It's hard to do drop off. It's miserable right now because of the fire station construction, but I know that will get resolved. But even without that, I do think that we are going to need to consider that parking will be a challenge. And in some respects, I'd almost rather you designate the court closest to the street, because that might encourage some of the folks playing pickleball to park a little further away, rather than that, you know, one-way drop off that abuts Central Park 2. Because that is a really high traffic area where the parking is right in, you know, adjacent to the tennis court this way.
Yeah.
I think that and I don't know what the considerations are, and you probably made the right decision in putting it there, but one thought I had is if it's over here and you're talking about 16 people versus 2, you might get people branching out with the parking. Finally, obviously this looks like this is a thing, and this is going to be, you know, the least that we're going to need. So then I wonder whether we're thinking about the possibility, if we're talking about developing other areas and maybe not taking away too many more tennis courts, are we perhaps looking for opportunities for sponsorships with our builders or our business community leaders or whatever, to look at potentially sponsoring some pickleball courts? And likewise, you know, we charge money to our residents for the fields for baseball, for soccer, for lacrosse, for football. I don't know that this is that yet, because if it stays very individual, drop in, it's not an organized thing, then maybe it stays the way it is. But I think we need to anticipate the possibility, if it becomes a big organized thing, whether we need to consider also paying a little bit of a share of it. Because, you know, as a taxpayer, I pay multiple times generally, because I also pay the fees to, you know, participate in nonprofit sports in the community where we rent the fields. But I think that's a longer term thing. Sorry, that's a lot.
Would you like me to respond?
Yeah, Kathy,
Sure.
go ahead.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. I think we are very cognizantly aware that this is just a very starting step that we can achieve quickly due to extreme demand by the community to flip a court. Ultimately, we do need to build probably a tennis pickleball complex of some sort, and those options will come to the commission as we consider development of Henry Ranch, as we consider development of other spaces that are going to come to the city. It's definitely something that we need to look at. If it comes to the point that we don't look at any of those spaces for it, Central Park is a good location. It could be expanded into that soccer field, but that picks up another sports user group that we need to talk with. There's a big benefit there though, because that snack shack could be turned into a place that you have a attendant, then it could be monetized, and all the tennis courts and pickleball courts could be, that more almost country club service where you can get your towel, your water, you reserve your court in advance, and you pay for that privilege. So those are all bigger term, long-term options for consideration. We're not there, but something to think about. So yes, absolutely. And we know those court sports are really important in San Ramon. So as we move forward over the next 5 to 7 years, we need to be looking at that next step.
Okay, thank you. I know Commissioner Dorlick's chomping at the bit to give us a motion, but are there any other comments or
Oh,
questions before I get there? You have
think
you have
it's-
stuff to say too?
Oh. you
Okay,
kidding?
please. Okay, but
Oh, you don't need my mic on. I have my outside
Yeah.
voice.
but I did want to say
So-
something before you go to a motion. Okay.
Why? Is it my turn to speak?
It is.
Fantastic. So I think it's a great recommendation. But the turning factor for me, the incredible turning factor for me is that in the state of California, we have 666 pickleball courts. We need to get off that number. So we just can't have that number sitting out there. So I would make a motion that we accept recommendation number 1 and instruct staff to move forward with the CIP and to put that, do we need to go to the city council? Or are we the arbiter of pickleball courts?
If you direct, then we will add it to the CIP list for your consideration in the spring when the CIP comes forward to you. So when you get the list of different things and we talk about it, you would then, that'll be on there as a fully fleshed out idea for.
Bingo. That's the motion.
Do I have a second?
I second it.
second.
I think that was a Carol Lopez Lucy second. Okay, let's go for a vote. All right, 6-0 with 1 commissioner absent. All righty, thank you.
He would have voted.
Well, that's why the ding happened. That was Steve.
It was his thinking of us. Yeah, okay.
That was another angel getting their wings.
Yeah. All right, guys. 8.3, the poet laureate recommendation, which will be presented by our new division manager, Brad Morris.
Thank you very much, Chair Kennison Lee and Commissioners, for having me here this evening. The item I'm discussing is the Poet Laureate recommendation, and it is recommended by the Poet Laureate Selection Committee that the commission recommend to the City Council, Jenneth Jo Gerhart Utchen, to serve as the city's Poet Laureate with the term to expire in September of 2024. In regards to our Poet Laureate, these are 2-year terms. So this current term was coming to end. And so the city clerk announced the vacancy for this position, and notices were placed on the city website, Facebook, and other social media outlets. We also communicated that the position was available to all of our past applicants, as well as distributed the information via email to all of our artist lists. The city clerk received 2 applications by the deadline of August 31st. These applications were interviewed by the subcommittee comprised of 2 Parks and Community Services Commissioners and 1 Arts Advisory Committee member. They met on Tuesday, September 6th. The committee felt both candidates were qualified and would make excellent Poet Laureate. However, Jenneth Jo Gerhart Utchen has extensive experience and strong connections to the community, and so recommended her to be put forward to the city council. So, and I know we had 2 of our commissioners sat on that committee, if you would like to question them, but we would like to
Okay,
present that to the committee.
let's go in order. Let's not get Commissioner Heidi Keniston Lee in trouble here. Okay, any questions first of all? Clarifying questions. Okay, any public comment on this item? I don't have any cards. Okay. Would the folks who interviewed, I believe it was Commissioner Mitra, were you one of them? Who?
No,
from-
actually, I'm Commissioner Doyle.
I know, yeah, Commissioner Dorlick. No, I know. I was trying to remember the 2.
Okay.
Were you the other one? And Commissioner Lopez Lucy. Okay. Did you guys have anything to add to what Brad said?
I think Brad covered.
All right.
What we felt.
I will entertain a motion.
I move that we take the recommendation for the Poet Laureate and proceed with it to city council for their final approval.
Second that.
Okay, Commissioner Mitra. Okay. All righty. Let's take a vote.
No, I seconded, so I cannot vote.
Wait a minute.
Did it go?
I don't know. Mine's wigging out a little bit.
I don't know that it goes, so. I don't know that mine
Okay.
goes.
I've already voted, so we're missing 1 vote.
I voted 6 times.
I did too. So
I did. I punched that 6 or 7 times. Maybe it went fine.
No, we've got 5 of 6, so we're missing 1 vote.
Mine doesn't go.
You got it? Okay, so we're at 601. Okay, motion passes.
Thank you very much,
Alrighty.
commissioners.
Okay, good. All right, gang. All right, we are to staff reports, item 9.1, recreation maintenance and operations report. Kathy, did you want to highlight anything in there?
Yeah, let me just give you a couple of the highlights. It's a lengthy report, but I'm always really proud of our aquatics program with the lifeguard games because they won first place best overall team,
Yay.
which just speaks to all the training that we do. So you could feel good when you're at our pools. It's also amazing. Fun on the farm on these Saturdays has been taking off. So 120 people showing up for rope making, I think is also noteworthy. So if you haven't made it out there for a Saturday fun on the farm, it's a great thing to stop by every Saturday. Rope. Sorry, I need to enunciate. I hope you also noted that the presenting series has been released and is listed in there with our season kicking off in November with Big Head Todd, the Marshall Tucker Band in January, and then Taylor Dane and Sheena Easton in March. So get your tickets. They'll go fast. Another really great one was the open gym is still growing, over 1,500 attendees in August this year compared to 667 in August of last year. It's incredible. So we're seeing really big surges in lots of our programs. As far as public services go, I want to draw a couple of points on theirs as well, which is hopefully you noted the Athen Downs dugouts getting the shade cloth. That was requested by Little League, and the public works staff were able to figure out how to accommodate that for them, especially as we're coming on these really hot days. Also, if you've been to Central Park, our arches are all replastered a nice, clean and beautiful white again. They haven't looked like that in years. They're absolutely gorgeous. And then, of course, Forest Home Farms getting their structures painted, which is essential maintenance in order to ensure that integrity of those buildings. So are there any questions I can answer for anybody?
Commissioner Osland, do you have a question?
I don't have a question. I just want to say also congratulations on the 3 awards from Bay Area Parent Magazine. Very cool.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll have more comments, but let's go to public comment because we do have a comment card. Taiwan, Country.
So thank you, Ms. Hyman, for all the programs. I saw all the nice pictures. They're just really happy and wonderful. Thank you so much. I do have a comment. I noticed that your lifeguard training is concentrated in near summer. So if you're looking to hire lifeguards for our summer camp, I'm wondering if you're getting enough lifeguards to, facilitate the programs that you're running in summer. And if you do have enough, I'm wondering if you would consider lifeguard for rent by HOAs, because a lot of the HOAs, they have guest rules. So, the HOA residents really cannot throw like a big party without finding a lifeguard per their rule, but it is a challenge to, for individuals to contact lifeguards. So I'm wondering if you can consider like a program where after you have trained the lifeguards, that you would consider, rent them out to HOA for pool parties. And then that way you guys can generate revenue. And in that way, we, can have more fun. Otherwise, a lot of people are forced to forfeit pool birthday parties because they can't find any lifeguards. And so my last request is for you to please increase your spring lifeguard training camps. I think last year you only had 2. I'm not sure if that's enough. So if you can please consider more, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, were there any other comments on the rec maintenance and operations report? Okay, yes, go ahead.
Well, I think we should be very proud. I mean, I was reading that and it's just, we're so busy that I can see the staff is constantly doing things, and it's remarkable to see all the things that we offer in our city. I think we should be very proud of what our staff does, and that we live here in this community that has such nice facilities and opportunities to take advantage of. I think it's really,
For sure.
really
Yeah.
great.
You know, what I wanted to comment on is with the planning pod software, I love that Parks and Community Services is leading in finding technology solutions to, operations and so forth. I think that's so important that we figure out ways to utilize technology to improve operations and to serve our residents. So I love that. And I also really love hearing when we go have a presence at the schools, the school visits to promote our programming. I think that's fantastic. I think it's going to generate more revenue, get more kids involved. So I really like that we do that. Anyone else? All right. So let's go to commission liaison reports and announcements. I'm going to kick us off and get the city council meeting reported. There was just one. They had one canceled. There was a proclamation declaring September 17th through the 23rd as Constitution Week. It was presented by representatives of the Daughters of the American Revolution. So that was very interesting. There were two Housing Advisory Committee appointments, Audra Carrion and Susan Ferris Indicum. And then our very own Kathy Hyman gave a very good, we always have the best slides, by the way, in Parks Community Services, a great presentation on fall events in San Ramon. And to your point, Commissioner Lopez Lucy, it really highlights how busy we are and all the great things that we do. So thank you for that. There was a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement between CCTA, which is the Transportation Authority, and the city of San Ramon for the advancement of some Measure J funds for the Bollinger Canyon Overcross Bridge. And so that was discussed at length. If you're interested, check out the city council meeting. There was also a lengthy discussion on the general plan update and recommendations relevant to the North Camino specific plan, North Camino Ramon specific plan. In a nutshell, what staff is suggesting is that it be repealed and that they implement some mixed use land designations that accommodate for, well, mixed use in different ways in different areas within that core area. So again, that's another one that if you're interested in land use and planning, go ahead and check it out. So I'm going to go over here. We'll start with our student commissioner. Welcome again. What's up with teen council?
Yeah, so we just had our first meeting and workshop last month where we discussed our goals and finalized them, and we approved our bylaws. We also approved the ambassador program, so the applications are out and they are due on September 23rd. For more information, people can go to srteen.org where they'll also find the application and the flyer. Last but not least, we have also been discussing the Outstanding Teen Citizenship Award. So applications for those are coming out soon, and it's a great opportunity for teens to kind of get recognized for all the work that they've been doing. And we're discussing it at our next meeting, which is next Tuesday on September 20th. And information about the application for that should be out soon.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Oslin?
I just want to say one thing. Student Commissioner Gupta, I've observed her running her meetings and she runs a great meeting too. So great work.
That's great.
Senior Citizens Advisory Committees, we had our meeting on Monday at 10 and we didn't have received, let's see, we talked about some implementing connected walking loops and a walking program at the Al Costa Senior and Community Center. And there are 3 loops. I'm happy to pass this down so you guys can take a look at it. They're all about 10 minutes in length as far as timing, and they're all very close in mileage, either 4.6, 4.8, or 4.8, and they could range from mild to moderate. So I'll pass these around. And so there's some new trails that will be going up at the senior center. So that's that. And then we had the Open Space Advisory Committee meeting the same day, and that was before this one. It was at 8:30. We received a presentation from the planning staff about all the year in review for 2021-22, all the projects that they've been involved in and that are in the queue. And there's been a lot of work in the planning group. We also started our conversation with Cindy Yee about the general plan update about the open space policies. And unfortunately, we had some technical difficulties. So we're going to regroup and reconvene on Friday morning at 8:30 and continue with that discussion. And That's all I have.
Thank you. Commissioner Dorlick,
Yes.
please share anything you need to share.
Well, we had a meeting of the Arts Advisory Committee last month. And it was the most exciting and energizing meeting of the year. Because we got to review about 73 different artists
Wow.
and their work for selection for the 2023 galleries. So that was very exciting. And that was about it. I don't think we did anything else, did we, Brad? No, I think that was just a selection. We already.
That
Yeah.
sounds like a full meeting.
It was a full meeting. It was a full, fun, and very fulfilling meeting.
Good. Commissioner Lopez Lucy.
Well, I'm on the planning and as we're all saying that they've going around, so you know how complicated it is. And if you want to listen to the meetings, why, have an hour to 2 hours. but you
3,
wanna-
4.
To learn all of these things because they are, the other thing I would say is that they're going to try to loop some of these special plans into a bigger one so that there's not so many things overlapping and it can be more concise. So that was one of the things, but it's very detailed. But it's very interesting as to how all this works. And also I will say on planning the building on Crow Canyon across from Home Depot has now been approved for a Montessori school. And it will be kindergarten through 6 years of age. So there'll be about 155 children. So that was not being used. So now it's being good. Pardon me?
Age 6 through kindergarten through 6, is that it?
Sixth grade.
Oh, 6th grade. Oh,
Sixth
okay.
grade.
Okay.
And and also they begin even they taking them at 6 weeks that's a different section. I mean, you have to be, what do you want to say, a different program for those ages. And so again, it was the general of the specific plans and it was the Montessori school. Those are the two main things because the planning is deep into changing all those things and looking at all those things. And EDAC has canceled their meeting again. So we do not why. I talked to Wade at Fast Signs today and he doesn't realize why they're being canceled, but I'm sure there's a good reason.
Thank you.
Report that.
Commissioner Mitra.
Yeah, nothing much to report today because library committee meeting didn't happen. I mean, this is alternate every quarterly, and innovation technology meeting was there, but it got cancelled.
Okay.
So nothing much.
Well, thank you being at the ready when it's time to go.
I was waiting.
You were ready. You're ready.
Wanted to attend at least one meeting.
They got a 404, huh?
Next time. Commissioner Ellicott Pesek.
I don't have any liaison reports. We said we can talk about whatever I want.
Go for it. Well, I don't know. I don't know if we want to give you carte blanche.
Not entirely. I just, first of all, want to welcome Commissioner Gupta, Student Commissioner Gupta. I'm thrilled to have you. I am sorry that I won't be there necessarily often to watch you in teen council, but I have no doubt you'll do a great job. And I just feel really strongly that now more than ever, we need to hear the student voice and the voice of our youth. So I'm really thrilled to have you and I appreciate you helping bring those voices, not only of the student commissioners, but continuing the ambassador program and reaching out beyond. So please keep it up and encourage them to be speaking up in all different forums. I also want to once again underscore the importance of the Run for Education. It is the largest community event supported and sponsored by the San Ramon Valley Education Foundation in partnership with the school district, with the PTA, with the city, everybody involved. And this is not just for folks who have kids in the schools. This is for the entire community. And we encourage people to come out, whether you run, walk, stroll, crawl, or just be a virtual runner, but just reconnecting with the community. It's a great way to do that. And again, the friendship run and the mini run are really, really special events on Saturday, as well as the expo that's going to occur. And then, of course, the San Ramon Valley Council of PTAs is very pleased to partner with the city of San Ramon on the Culture in the Community Festival, which I think is really a great opportunity to bring so many diverse cultures together to celebrate our diversity. And I think it's what makes San Ramon very, very special. And so I hope folks will take the opportunity to go out and support and celebrate that and encourage others to do so.
Thank you. We actually do have a comment card. Come on up. And do we have any online comments for this item? No. Okay, so it's all you.
Thank you so much. I want to speak on two of the comments that was made, first of all, by Teen Council. Welcome. And I was in your meeting last time, and I am a little bit concerned as a parent that our city attorney is actually asking you guys to help him with vaping code. I almost feel like it's too much of a daunting project. I don't know how that is coming along. I know that he suggested some sort of ad hoc committee, which I thought was also fishy as a parent. I really don't know why he is sort of maybe exerting something that is going to be controversial on you guys. So whoever is on the ad hoc committee to work on the vaping code language really has a lot on your shoulders. And so anyways, I just want to share that with the commissioners because you're also adults in the room. And I just really don't feel that it's appropriate for our city attorney to impose such, controversial and important, because as we know, vaping is the entry level, behavior to more addictive, chemicals later down the line for teenagers. And so I don't really know what they're doing over there, but as a parent, I did voice my concern that I wasn't too happy about that, and I don't think it was appropriate. Secondly, I want to comment on Ms. Oslin's comment about senior meeting. I don't know if you know, I was blocked the whole time. Later on, I called the staff. Why is it that I couldn't get on to the Zoom meeting? What I did everything the agenda told me to do, but Zoom scrambled a bunch of number I did not punch in. It was such a ghostly experience. If you can imagine, like, I'm just, oh, this phone is possessed, because that's not what I punched, but that's what the computer is telling me. Sorry, you punched these numbers and this meeting doesn't exist, clunk. So I couldn't get in the whole time. And that ties into somebody said that EDAC is not meeting again. And as a Taiwanese American, I have a feeling it's probably because, just like Zoom, is only giving me problem. I think it has to do with the fact that I'm a Taiwanese. EDAC, unfortunately, has a lot of communist Chinese Americans. There's nothing wrong with that. We are Americans, and we are diversity. There's going to be Taiwanese, there's going to be communist Chinese, but I don't appreciate I'm singled out for discrimination, especially for public meetings. I'm kicked out by Zoom. I can't participate in meetings. That is unconstitutional. It's depriving me of my civil right. That is not right.
Okay, we're about at wrap up time.
And if EDAC is not meeting because they don't want my participation, well, too bad for them, because there is a lot of business opportunities that can be coming from other diversities and ethnic groups, and not just coming from communist Chinese communities.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For your comments. Okay, I'm going to take the liberty of just saying, with regard to the vaping ordinance, just for those who don't know, a couple of years ago, the Teen Council did actually do some work in conjunction with the city attorney to enhance and improve our smoking ordinance. This was a couple of years ago. And it was a very successful project. And I just didn't know if folks were aware that it was well received and a very effective project. So just as a form of background, I thought I'd throw that out there. We do know technology is not always perfect, and we know that things happen, but we do thank you for your comments. And Commissioner?
Well, I just might add that throughout the Tri-Valley, the teen committees, I can speak with experience with the Pleasanton ordinance that was implemented in 2019, that the teen committee there was very much involved in the research and the recommendations to both the Economic Vitality Committee that I'm a member of in Pleasanton, as well as the city council. So the teens have always been involved in helping form policy that has a direct effect upon them as a demographic group. They have a vested interest in that because it affects teens more than it affects other demographics
Um,
in the area.
Are we at liberty? Are we still within our bounds here? I know Student Commissioner Gupta would like to say something. Are we okay? Kathy?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
If I may share, I just wanted to. Oh, thank you. If I may share, I just wanted to say that I completely agree with Commissioner Dorlick when he says that I think that our input as teens was really important because I feel like we have a lot of one-on-one direct connections with the topic, considering that we go to school and we kind of see it happening all around us. So I think that having a voice and knowing that the city cares about what we have to say is really empowering. And as teens, we are close to being adults, adults who will be participating in community, who will be participating in local government and voting. And so I think that this is great that the city appreciates our input and takes it into account along with many other factors, because I think it provides us with experience, but it also kind of gives the city another point of view.
Thank you. Were you wanting to say something, Commissioner?
All of
Ellicott?
those things kind of took my to my points a little bit, but I do want to underscore once again, the student voice is critical. You guys know what's going on the school campuses and in the community. And I actually think this is brilliant. And I want to applaud the city even further for including the students in this kind of thing. Ultimately, you will not be responsible for drafting legislation that, it will be checked. And this is not, I think, an inordinate responsibility, but I think this is how we get buy-in in our community to things. So we absolutely should be involving the constituencies. And most importantly, again, the teens, my kids keep showing me over and over again, they see things differently than I do. And you know what? In a lot of cases, they're right. And they're seeing things I haven't seen before. So I think we should look for opportunities everywhere we go to involve the student voice and the leaders that are willing to step up and share their feedback and bring the student perspective from their peers. It's fantastic. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you. All right, any last comments for the good of the order here?
Yes, I would like to say something on the Oktoberfest.
Okay.
I hope that you would all get your order in for food. Unfortunately, it's not going quite like we thought because last year we had so many people today because you have to pre-register for your meals, which might be a problem. But I checked this morning and we only had 50. So we've hired a caterer. We're all set to go. We have the charity leagues helping us, and we have lots of volunteers. And so I just would hope that you will support us and come out because we have like 6 breweries that are offering their selves, and they don't charge us, and we'll have music and it's very good food. And so I would just like you to come. So please make your reservations.
Thank you.
Pass the word.
House Gazette.
Well, I just want to thank you all for being here, your dedication to the city, and yes. Oh, we
Can I
got another
just add
comment.
One more thing, last
we have
final
so much
thing.
good stuff to say, and we don't want to leave.
Final thing is October 1st and 2nd is this year our 6th Durga Puja. And September 30th, yes, September 30th, we will start in the evening and it goes up to 1st and October 1st and 2nd. So 3 days. That will be there. And so I expect everyone. So this is the 6th year on that. Amazing support from city. So thank you guys. Also, we moved from the Meadow area to the bigger soccer field 2 area on that one.
Okay.
So please drop by, especially the main time is a Saturday afternoon on that. But please drop by whenever you can. It is an amazing event for everybody's welcome. Everybody is free. Come on there. And it's an amazing event where we see everybody coming along dressed up and things. And there are a lot of shops there. Buy a lot of stuff there, new garments and stuff like that. So please drop by. Yep. It is an amazing event.
I'm proud to be a sponsor.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Oh, and also at the Cultural Community, we'll have a Hannah tattooing there again this
Nice.
year. Proud to be
Nice.
sponsoring that as well.
I'm lifting the gavel. Anyone else? We are adjourned. Thanks, everyone.